Hey YouTube, what's going on? Snowflakey here with another deck profile. Today it is my Dark Magician Trap Stun deck. Dark Magician, of course, Yugioh's ace monster, the iconic Duel Monsters mascot himself. Dark Magician is a pretty cool looking monster. It's a normal monster, and my love of normal monsters means I gotta give this deck some love. I admit, when I was a kid, I wasn't crazy about the Dark Magician, definitely more of a Blue Eyes person, but definitely have turned around to being quite into Dark Magician as I've gotten older. So with that said, let's get into the cards. First off, for the monsters, I am playing 3 of the Dark Magician. Dark Magician speaks for itself. 2500 attack monster. It was Yugioh's ace. It's a normal monster. It's a spellcaster, 7 stars. And of course, the card being named Dark Magician is what makes it so good because a lot of the cards in the deck synergize with specifically Dark Magician. So we're playing 3 of it because we want to see it. We can get multiple out on the field at once, which is very powerful and very handy to do. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Magi Karibo. Magi Karibo is a pretty cool cut card that makes this style of deck work. What it does is during the main or battle phase, if you took damage by battle or by an opponent's card effect this turn, you can quick effect send this card from your hand to the graveyard to special summon a Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl from your deck or graveyard. And then if a face-up spellcaster type monster you control is destroyed by battle and or by an opponent's card effect, you can add this card from the graveyard to your hand. So what's pretty nice is you take damage, you discard Magi Karibo, you special summon out a Dark Magician. When your Dark Magician is gone, you can add Magi Karibo back to your hand, and then you'll be able to use its effect later. That can basically create a continuous loop of Dark Magician going into Magi Karibo, which will bring back your Dark Magician, making your Dark Magician incredibly hard to remove. I love cards that do little loops like that with Monster, just looping them back and forth, and so Magi Karibo is great. Lastly, for the monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Magician's Rod. This is a pretty simple card. When this card is normal summoned, you can add a spell or trap from the deck to your hand that specifically lists Dark Magician in its text. That's mainly why this card's in here. We can use it to add Dark Magical Circle or Eternal Soul. Usually those are the 2 we're looking for. We got a couple other targets it can last, but yeah, those are the main targets. And then, of course, during your opponent's turn, if you activate a spell or trap card or effect while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you contribute a spellcaster type monster, add this card back to your hand, and you can only use each one effect of this card per turn. So that makes it pretty nice. Eternal Soul can help us spit out a Dark Magician from our field or grave every turn, so we can gladly tribute our Dark Magician on the field to put Magician's Rod back in our hand, and maybe we special summon it back out with Eternal Soul. So that just makes it pretty awesome, and then that'll get us another search. So searches us the cards we need, it can come back, search us more cards. That just makes it a great card to have. And that is it for the monsters. This is a Trap Stun build of the deck, so very low monster count. Next up, for our spells, I am playing 3 copies of Dark Magical Circle. Dark Magical Circle is incredibly powerful in this deck when we're going to be special summoning Dark Magician quite a bit. When this card is activated, we look at the top 3 cards of our deck, and then we can reveal 1 Dark Magician or a spell or trap that specifically lists Dark Magician in its text and add it to our hand, which is pretty sweet. And then we can put the other cards on the deck, on the top of the deck, in any order we like. Then, of course, if Dark Magician is normal or special summoned, except during the damage step, you can target 1 card your opponent controls and banish it. So that's nice. Banishing removal that we can use on either player's turn, as long as we can special summon out Dark Magician. And it's very easy to special summon out Dark Magician on both our and our opponent's turn to constantly be banishing cards. That's the one thing I really like over this deck, over the Blue Eyes Trap Stun version, is this card is extremely powerful. We're playing 3 of it because we want to see it in our opener, even though it might be a little overkill and we could search for it. I still want to play it because there's other cards we're going to want to search too, so you know, seeing it means that we don't have to search it per se. Next up, I'm playing 1 copy of Illusion Magic. This is kind of an emergency button of I need to get access to Dark Magician somehow, so we contribute a spellcaster type monster to add up to 2 copies of Dark Magician from the deck or graveyard to the hand. So this is nice because we can play Magician's Rod, search Illusion Magic, play Illusion Magic, tribute our Magician's Rod, get 2 Dark Magicians in our hand, which is very important if we have Eternal Soul or something like that ready to go, and we want to be able to get them. Just a 1-of for that reason. Other 1-ofs we're playing, 1 of Dark Magic Attack. This is a card that we can search with Eternal Soul, which is very nice, and it has a very powerful effect that while we control Dark Magician, and the Dark Magician is face up, we can destroy all spell and traps our opponent controls on the field. So that's nice. Just destroys a lot of spell and traps. Pretty good, especially if you have friends that are playing some trap card heavy decks, back row heavy decks. It's this one similar to this, of course. And I'm playing one copy of Thousand Knives. If you control a face-up Dark Magician, you can target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it. So Dark Magic Attack, if we need to destroy spells and traps. Thousand Knives, if we need to destroy monsters. Both of these are searchable from the deck, so that makes a good use of Eternal Soul if we've already maxed out on our Dark Magicians on the field, and or just want to thin the deck. Both good cards to grab. Next up, I'm playing one copy of Foolish Burial. Sends a monster from the deck to the graveyard. We can send Dark Magician so we have access to it, or if we already have Dark Magician and would like to get the Karibo loop going, we can send a Magi Karibo. Those are namely the two targets, definitely worth playing as a one of. Next, I am playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. This is a trap stun version of the deck, so we're not really going into extra deck monsters. We're going to turn that extra deck into card advantage. This card allows us to banish 6 random extra deck cards face down to draw 2, which is great. Extra cards can get us into our floodgates or our Eternal Soul, any of the pieces we need to get our Dark Magician loop going. Very happy to get it. In addition, helping out the deck, we're going to play 3 copies of Pot of Duality. Now, Pot of Duality doesn't let us special summon the turn we play it, but that's not a big deal. Plenty of turns we're fine not special summoning. But in exchange for that, we get to look at the top 3 cards of our deck and add 1 to our hand and shuffle the rest back in the deck. This is very important for getting a key piece of our opening board. Something like Eternal Soul, maybe we're looking for Dark Magical Circle, or most importantly, probably looking for one of our floodgates, which is going to be how this deck wins. The most powerful tool Dark Magician has is really nasty continuous trap cards it can play, like Skill Drain and things like that. And if this card can get it to him, we're going to have a good game for us. And that is it for the spells. Next, moving on to the traps, we are playing 3 copies of Eternal Soul. Eternal Soul is, of course, the card that holds this deck together. Every Dark Magician in your monster zone is unaffected by your opponent's card effects. And of course, if this face-up card leaves the field, you have to destroy all monsters you control. Very important, so you do need to protect this card if you don't want to get board wiped. Not that that's the worst, because if you get board wiped, you can usually get your board back thanks to Magi Karibo and activate another one of these per se. While this card is on the field, you can activate one of these effects per turn. Either Special Summon Dark Magician from your hand or graveyard, or you can add a Dark Magic Attack or Thousand Knives from your deck to your hand. So that's pretty nice. This card, we can use it on both our turn and our opponent's turn to Special Summon, or if we don't have any Dark Magicians to Special Summon, we can search our spell cards. So gets cards out of the deck, gets our monster on board. If it's Dark Magician and we got Dark Magical Circle, we're going to be banishing a card. Just very handy. This is the deck that lets this all work together. Also gives us the ability to do things like play Torrential Tribute and wipe our own board without any worries because we can always summon a card back out. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Skill Drain. Dark Magician's most powerful weapon is Skill Drain. Skill Drain is great because it's a continuous trap card where we pay 1,000 life points to negate the effects of all effect monsters that's on the field. Luckily for us, Dark Magician is a non-effect monster. It does not have an effect, so we do not care. The only card in our deck that this shuts off is Magician's Rod, which if we've resolved one on turn 1 before we play Skill Drain, we really don't need the effects of the other one anyway. We'll just summon them as an extra beat stick body, and this card just hoses so many decks. It's definitely the main win con, and we'll be scrambling to figure out what to do with Dark Magician when this card gets limited or banned again. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Summon Limit. Summon Limit, another very powerful continuous trap card. Summon Limit says that neither player can summon more than twice per turn, and that adds a lot of power to this deck. So many decks need to combo off and build a big board of extra deck monsters that if we can cut them off at 2, this Dark Magician strategy can really sink its teeth in and deal with our opponent no problem. Makes it harder for our opponent to go into monsters bigger than 2,500 attack, and of course combos really well with the Eternal Soul summoning out Dark Magician and Dark Magical Circle, because if they summon 2 monsters, we can play Summon Limit. They can't summon anymore. We can banish one with Dark Magical Circle, then on our turn maybe we can banish another with another Eternal Soul or Dark Magician summon. So all very handy stuff, and works out very well for this deck. Definitely a great card. Next, to protect our floodgates, I am playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgement. Solemn Judgment here, powerful counter trap. We pay half our life points to negate a summon or a spell or trap card activation. Normally we're just keeping this in the back row, so if our opponent draws Harpy Feather Duster, any of their spell and trap removal to remove our Eternal Soul, or our continuous trap cards, that we can just negate it and keep our board safe. Of course, if we're about to push for game, we can use Solemn Judgment to negate a summon, especially powerful with summon limits up, because as long as we're not negating a card effect that summons, it counts as one of the summons towards summon limit. Very handy card. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Torrential Tribute, very powerful trap card that we can just flip, and it says activate. We can destroy all monsters on the field when a monster is summoned, so that's pretty cool. Works very well with summon limit, because if our opponent summons their second monster, we flip Torrential Tribute, wipe their board, they're open for attacks, and they can't summon anymore. And of course, we don't mind wiping our own board, because with Eternal Soul and Magi Karibo, we can easily re-summon out our Dark Magicians from the grave, which is no problem at all. We like that. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. This is just a pick for playing in my group, because we play a lot more casual decks that have back row spells and trap cards, and Heavy Storm Duster is just a great card for getting rid of them. We can target up to 2 spells and traps and destroy them in exchange for our battle phase, which doesn't matter if we play it during our opponent's turn, which is normally what we're going to do. We're going to wait till they set. At the end phase, we're going to pop 2 cards, go plus, get rid of problematic spells and traps that might hurt us later. Very nice. And last, to fill out the last deck slot, I'm playing 1 copy of Solemn Strike, just a very good counter trap to have. We pay 1,500 life points to negate the special summon of a monster or an activation of effect. Just very handy, can stop a lot of stuff. And that is it for the main deck. So that is it for the Dark Magician Trap Stun deck. As far as the extra deck goes, mostly just shove 15 extra deck cards into it so that you have them to go off of extravagance. You can throw in some rank 7s and things like that you can put your Dark Magicians into, but I don't find that too necessary, and it's kind of hard to do under summon limit. So this just isn't really the deck to go into extra deck cards. Traditionally, I would fill it with all the fusions that list Dark Magician specifically, so I have the option to play Fusion Deployment as a way to get Dark Magician out of the deck, but I don't find I really need that with Magi Karibo and the ability to search Illusion Magic, things like that, and it allows me to play Pot of Duality, which is just a lot more handy. So, appreciate you all taking out the time to check out the deck profile. Love to know what you'd play with Dark Magician. Are you on Team Dark Magician or on Team Blue Eyes? I'll talk to you later, and I'll catch you in the next one.